Good afternoon. I'm Arvis Washington, Deputy Director for the Department of Navy's Office of Small Business Programs, led by our distinguished director, Mr. Jimmy Smith. On behalf of OSBP, we thank you for joining us today. We started this webinar series as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic as a way to continue our outreach, but received such rave reviews, we decided to keep it going, committing to hosting at least 3 webinars a month. The Department of Navy recognizes small businesses are the catalyst of innovation, and we use this platform as a way to attract new partners. You can view previously recorded events on our website under the Outreach tab and Past Events, or visit our YouTube channel. I would like to direct you to our website at www.secnav.navy.mil/small-business, where you can find a wealth of information, including our Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs Operations Plan. You can locate your small business professional and find information on how to do business with the Department of the Navy, including the Command's Long-Range Acquisition Forecast. To stay current on Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs upcoming events, you can register for our mailing list on the homepage of our website. To stay up to date about upcoming industry days, Command's outreach, and in general, what's happened across the Department of Navy, I also encourage you to connect with us on our social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Today, we have a dynamic panel. I would like to introduce Ms. Sherry Savage. She's the Program Manager for the Procurement Technical Assistance Program at the Defense Logistics Agency. She is responsible for oversight of the agency's administration of this cooperative agreement program that aims to expand the number of businesses capable of participating in government contracts. Prior to this position, Ms. Savage supported the program as a grants officer. And with that, please join me in welcoming Ms. Sherry Savage. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Arvis. Thanks for that great welcome. The Procurement Technical Assistance Program, as Arvis says, has the goal of increasing businesses' capability to participate in government contracting. And we have 94 PTACs located all throughout the US. So from wherever you're watching, you can Google PTAC in the name of your state, and you will find PTACs available to serve you locally. Today, our University of Texas at Arlington PTAC, the Cross Timbers PTAC, has agreed to come on and share with you what a typical PTAC does to help clients, their business clients, respond to DoD's cybersecurity requirements. And the PTACs serve businesses at no cost. So everything that you hear about today can be provided to your business from your local PTAC free of charge. So we have Gregory James, he's the program manager of the Cross Timbers PTAC, and Spelile Rivas, the counselor at the Cross Timbers PTAC, and they're going to introduce you to the programs that they have at their PTAC to help businesses with cybersecurity. So with that, over to you, Mr. James.
Thank you, Sherry. I would like to thank Ms. Washington, Ms. White for hosting this event, and Sherry, I especially thank you for inviting us. What we're going to do today is talk about what we do as a PTAC to help our clients comply with DoD. Also with me is Spelile Rivas. She is our go-to person for Cmmc, and she handles that whole effort with our clients. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing my picture, and hopefully the slides will come up. There we go. So what we want to discuss is how we help clients with this. So just in case you didn't know, this Procurement Technical Assistance Center is funded in part through the cooperative agreement with the Department of Defense. We also receive matching funds from the university and the DoD prime contractors. Next slide. This is a map that shows the different PTACs. I think it's a little more now than 94, but if you'll go to the website that's referenced right under primary locations, you'll be able to identify the PTAC that is in your area, and they should be able to help you immensely in achieving your goal doing business with DoD. Next slide. All right, so what we wanted to do before we get into the exact requirements, we want to give the current situation. So as of December 31st, all defense contractors must comply or have complied or will comply still with DFARS 252, 204, 7012, which is safeguarding covered information. This requirement came out in 2017, and we're still in the process of helping clients understand what the requirements are and so on. Then by October 1st, 2025, all contractors will be required to have cybersecurity maturity model certification. And so what basically will happen is that the contracting officer will issue a solicitation with corresponding levels of 1 through 3. And there are 5 different levels where 4 and 5 tend to deal with the large prime contractors like Lockheed Martin and so on. And we anticipate a lot of our clients will be at level 1, which involves COTS items. If you're a distributor or a dealer for a manufactured product or manufacturer, then you'll be expected to be around level 1. And then, of course, if you are a manufacturer, a machine shop, or you provide services, construction, and so on, they will want you to be at level 3. Next slide. As of November 30th, 2020, there was an interim rule that was put out, and it requires that contractors, vendors, comply with the NIST SP 800-717 DoD self-assessment. And once you take this assessment, which is about 110 questions, you should post the score in SPRS. And we can send you a link for that if you'd like. The company will not be able to bid on contracts that require they have to have an SPRS score. Then as of January 13th, the DoD initiated a trusted capital digital marketplace. And this is where DoD will vet people, investors that are interested in investing in defense companies. They will vet them and make sure that they aren't associated with any of our enemies, and fund it through so that it's a pure play all the way across. Next slide. Okay, so what do PTACs should do in helping clients comply? First, we help businesses read cyber-related clauses and other instructions included in the solicitations that they will bid on, and understand what's being asked. That's a very important thing for small businesses to understand what the clauses mean and what the expectations are. So we do a lot of awareness webinars and counseling sessions so that there is some understanding. The second thing is that we encourage all businesses to go through the cyber assessment and post their score in SPRS. So, and Spelile will talk a little bit more in detail about the the self-assessment that we've designed. But basically, it's an Excel file that has all the 110 questions in it, and you're able to respond. I think you have about 4 choices in each of the questions, and then you come up with the a score, and that score could range from a minus 200 to a plus 110. So it's got a wide range there, and at this point, the guidance that we've received is that they just want to have that score in the system. So when a contracting officer looks at your company or your capability statement or your SAM registration or your DSBS profile, all the items, databases that they use, they will then go to SPRS to determine, to see what your self-assessment score is. Next slide. All right, so here are the compliance steps, okay? There's basically 5 things that need to be done. First, the self-assessment. And then once you know how you scored, the next thing is a plan of action and milestones that we call a POAM. And this would be an Excel sheet that says, okay, task 1, blah, 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 who's responsible for it, and what the estimated correction date is. The system security plan, which is a plan that is very detailed for your company, that will outline what you've done and what you plan to do with all the systems, with all the requirements with CMMC. The next one is an incident response plan and reporting. And that's when you want to, if you know you've been hacked by an outside entity, that you have to report it to your contracting officer. And you also have to include what you're doing to keep it from happening again. And then there's subcontractor flow down requirements. So every prime contractor, DoD prime contractor for right now, will have the same requirements to flow down to their subs. Now, this is a very interesting, very detailed compliance. In my discussions with the 8A program in Dallas-Fort Worth, Nancy Alvarez, we like that there's going to be a lot of companies that aren't going to be able to go through to meet these compliance steps. So then they'll have to make a business decision as to whether they want to continue or not do work at all. But please be advised, we feel very deeply that all federal agencies will have some sort of compliance to 7012. So it's going to be out there. Now, PTACs, we, especially at UT Arlington, we only do the self-assessment. The plan of action, the system security plan, incident response plan, and flow down requirements are to be done. A company may need an outside company to come in and help them with it. But for security reasons and liability reasons, we only help with the self-assessment, and we don't know what score is that the client made. So that's about where we're limited to. And so the other 2, 3, 4, 5 plans, most likely you're going to have to hire an outside person to come in. Now, as the CMMC is training auditors, okay? So auditors will come into your company and look at all 5 of these steps to see to what level you're complied to. And we aren't sure exactly what their checklist looks like, but at the end of the day, they'll determine what level of CMMC you're certified at. And once they give you that level, 1 through 3 or 4, whatever the number is, then you'll only be allowed to bid on those contracts that have that level. So it's going to be up to the contracting people to attach a level certification to each of their solicitations that go out. And we're anticipating that to be in full activity in 2025, which is not far from now. Next slide. All right, so what I'd like to do is have Spelile just go through with you the assessment itself so you get an idea of what it looks like and what kind of questions they'll be asking. Spelile?
Thank you, Gregory. I am waiting to share my screen. I need permission apparently to do that, and then I will show you the self-assessment. But while I'm waiting for that, I did want to just let everybody know that this process is going to be difficult. Not going to sugarcoat it. It is something that is going to require a lot of time, a lot of effort, and probably more than just your cybersecurity specialist. So, you know, all you business owners out there, don't think that you can just pass it off on somebody else. You're going to have to be a participant. Some of the questions have to deal with cybersecurity, others have to do with management. So it's recommended that you include more than just your cybersecurity specialist, that the owners are involved. And also, if you have somebody who does ISO on your team, then it's going to be a really good start for you when you have to begin the system security planning process. That also is going to be something that's very difficult and is going to require a lot of time. I've seen some system security plans that have more than 150 pages. So it's something that the government expects to be very detailed. And really, it's going to benefit you more if it's as detailed and as organized as possible. Simply because when the CMMC assessors do come in and do audit your company, you want to get them in and out as quickly as possible. If they have to ask you for a lot of information or a lot of details, then it's going to delay the process a little bit. So let's go over the software that we have prepared. The great thing about this software is that it will give you your SPUR score when you've answered all the questions. Like Gregory said, this process has 110 standards that you will need to address. So the first thing that we've done is compiled a cover page. And the reason why this is important, because every 3 years you will have to update your SPUR score. So right now it's only 2021, and the CMMC, you know, you're not really expected to have your CMMC until 2025. So if you wait that long, odds are you're going to have to update your SPURs between now and then. So on the cover page, you'll find, of course, your company name, a completion date, who completed the self-assessment, and also what version number that is. The next tab that we have are just the instructions on how to use the software. And so I will go over that very quickly. So the next several tabs, there's 14 of the next 14 will be your actual control families. So some people call them controls, some people call them families, but these will be where the standards are listed under. 3.1, your first control family is access control. And this has 22 standards that are associated with it. So the important thing to know about these standards, or actually the important thing to know about the self-assessment itself, is that you start off with a perfect score of 110. So the government's already given you the benefit of the doubt. They're like, wow, you're perfect, you get 110. So as you start answering the standards, then you actually start getting points subtracted. So when you finish with your self-assessment, you might actually have a negative score. And if you do, you just do. And that's why the poem is there, so that you can work towards getting a better score. But the way that you would use the software is you would first read the standard. So standard 3.1.1 is limit system access to authorized users, processes acting on behalf of authorized users, and devices, including other systems. So you will find that the standards are purposely vague. And the reason for this is because every company is going to have a different type of system setup. So to kind of allow for that, the government didn't want to throw in specifics. So if you read the standard and you're like, what we have designed is you can click on the standard ID and it takes you to a discussion. And so you can read through this discussion to understand, or just to see if you understand the standard a little bit better. Once you've read through the discussion, you can just click back on the standard ID. It's going to put you back to the self-assessment, so you can address the question or address the standard. If you still, after reading the discussion, are kind of in the dark about whether or not you have addressed the standard correctly, we also provide what is called a self-assessment guide. And the self-assessment guide, instead of having a discussion, it starts actually asking you questions that you can ask yourself as a business owner. So for instance, 3.1.1, one of the questions might be, do all my computer systems have a password? Do they have an authorized user? That type of thing. And so if you say yes to all that, then you can go ahead and answer the question. Another great thing about the self-assessment guide is it actually points you to where in your system you can find that information, or who in your company you can ask to help you address that standard. But once you know what the answer is, you just click here in where it says answer in the little box, and then there's a drop down arrow. So you actually have 3 ways that you can address a standard. You either have that standard completely and fully implemented, you plan to have it implemented, or it's not applicable. So going back to the scoring methodology, which is another handbook that you will receive, you'll find that if you answer the question implemented, you will receive a score of 0 for this standard. And once again, the reason for that is that you're already perfect. The government already assumes that you've answered this, that this is part of your company. So you will, if you answer implemented, then your score will remain 110, assuming you answered everything else correctly. But let's say that you plan to implement it. Then if you look at the scoring methodology chart, each of these standards has a value that's assigned to it. And this is why you can actually get a negative score, because each standard does not have like a 1 point, you know. And so for the first one, I know because I work with this, the scoring methodology for the first one is a severity level of 5. And then they have a severity level of 3, and they have a severity level of 1. So when you find the severity level of 5, if you have this plan to be implemented for this question, you will receive a -5 for your score. And of course, then your overall score would be 105. The same is true for not applicable. Even though you feel like it does not apply to your company, there are some standards that the government's all like, well, whether you feel like it applies or not, it applies. And so the scoring methodology, when you look at the chart that's there, it will tell you whether or not you subtract negative points for a not applicable answer, or whether or not you can keep that as a 0. So just to, I guess, repeat myself, this software does score it for you, or maybe I didn't say that. Well, it does score it for you, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you wanted to, like, say, take it on a piece of paper or check the scoring methodology, then that information is there. So that will tell you how these standards are scored as you work through them. You'll notice, you just scroll through the tabs, some of the standards, some of the control families have, you know, a few standards, other ones have more, but you're just going to go and you're going to address all of the standards. Once you've gotten through all 14 of them, then we have a tab that's called completion of questionnaire. And what this does is it just counts down how many questions you've answered, just to make sure that you don't miss any of the standards. So if you've answered all 22 or addressed all, you know, all 7, then once all of this is 0, then you're ready to go to your summary tab. So the summary now gives you a score. For the access control, it gives you a score. And the reason why this is important is because it will allow you to see kind of where you need to maybe build up your system a little bit more. This is especially important if you know that maybe you need a score of 35, but you only have a score of 25. You'll be able to look at this and see maybe where you can build up some of your security so that you can raise your SPURS score. But as you go through, it is calculating your SPURS score, which will be displayed here. Right now it's a -178, just because of the way that we set up the methodology. But once you know what your SPURS score is, then you can post it to the SPURS. And as Gregory was saying, we do have detailed guides for that type of information. We also have help desk information and where you can turn to if you should have issues posting to SPURS, and some companies have recently. But down here, it walks through our methodology, how we score it a little bit more. And as I say, if you don't trust the software, you can score it yourself. So that information you'll have in your hand. The next tab that we have is called the POEM. The plan of action and milestone is what a poem is. And as Gregory has said, this is one of the compliance steps. So this is just a poem template. You can use it, not use it, do whatever you'd like. I've seen some companies that just use an Excel sheet for their poems. I've seen other companies that have a book. It just depends on how you wanted to use your company. But it's believed that this is one of the documents that the assessors will ask for when they give you a CMMC level. So let's just walk through the template really quickly. The first thing you're going to do is add your standard ID number. Sorry, I'm not here. So you're going to add your standard ID number, which was 3.1.1 if you don't have that implemented. Of course, the creation date, the weakness name, maybe you don't have all of your computers with an authorized users, you still need to do that. So that's your weakness name and description. The severity level, once again, you're going to have to go to the scoring methodology handbook to find out if the severity level is 5, which is a high, moderate 3, or low 1. So you can add that there. Your point of contact is who you assign to complete the work. You know, probably your IT person, make sure they have passwords for everybody or authorized users. You're gonna of course put your scheduled completion date. And maybe there's an issue here. If there are, you're going to list the issues, any changes to those issues, the source of the weakness, who knows what it is. And then your actual completion date. So this poems is also a good way, once again, of increasing your SPURS score. If you know that you need 25 points to be able to bid on a certain contract, then you can come here, you can find out what your high poems are, and you can address those issues so that you can raise your SPURS score. The great thing about the SPURS score is that you can update it at any time. So it's not like you have to wait 3 months. Updating is something that you can do at any time. So that is the self-assessment software that we have. All of our compliance tools are free, so it's at your disposal. And we will also point you in a direction, because some of this gets very technical if you feel that you can't handle it. We do have guides and companies that we recommend that you can work with. So that is all that I have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to Gregory.
And I think, Gregory, we do have quite a few questions in the Q&A that we would like you and Spelile to answer. So I'll give you the opportunity if you had other things that you wanted to say before moving into Q&A.
No, I think it's a process. I always like to say federal contracting is a marathon, not a race. So you just have to take it one day at a time, one question at a time, and you know, and be successful. So that's all. So we're ready for questions.
Okay, great. The first one I think is a sort of a request for clarification or statement, and it is that contractors can bid on solicitations without a score in SPURS, but they will not be awarded a contract without a score in SPURS. They have to have, they can bid without the score, but they have to have a score in SPURS at the time of award. Is that your understanding?
Sounds pretty logical. I don't have any data to back that up right now, but it sounds like it's a logical step. Spelile, do you have an answer to that one?
Well, that's correct. And you actually can have that. You can bid on it without having a, you know, the SPURS number. You know, it's really recommended that you just go ahead and get it now. And one of the reasons is that, okay, like let's say that you find a contract that you want to bid on, you bid on it tomorrow, but then as you start working through the self-assessment, you realize there's no way that you're going to be able to get your SPURS score in time. And, you know, the self-assessment, it has 110 questions and you think, oh, it's just 110. It's a bit more of a process than that. We've had companies that have been working on this 6 weeks, 6 months. So whereas technically, sure, you can bid on a contract and you do have to have it for, you know, when you get awarded, it's still recommended that you start the process now.
I think that's good advice too. And it's also important to note that right now, the actual score itself doesn't matter and doesn't harm the business. but they must have a score in SPURS. So it's better to start on that self-assessment, and then maybe you run out of time, so you just put NA on all the ones you didn't get to, and it will surely result in a poor score. But at this time, it doesn't matter for most procurements. You simply need any score in the system. So you are right that starting is the best bet. The next question is actually a clarification or correction. It says that DoD will issue certifications for CMMC levels 1, 3, and 5. Levels 1 and 4 are transition levels, and there is no certificate issued for levels 2 and 4.
Okay, so DoD is not issuing the level. It's coming out of the CMMC board. And so they'll be the ones that will determine what level of compliance that you're in. So that's one clarification. And what was the other one? The other question too?
They're saying that no certificate is issued for levels 2 and 4.
That I'm not sure. Spelile, you have a question, any answer on that one?
So I think that you actually can get a certification for a level 2. The levels are there. You don't want a certification for a level 2. It's not going to benefit you at all. But the reason why it's there, it's kind of like if an assessor, if you want to have a level 3, once again, the assessor assigns the levels, not you. So you can go in hoping that you have a level 3. They may look at your system and say, no, I'm sorry, you're not a level 3, but you're not a level 1 either. So they'll give you a level 2 certification, and then you'll have 90 days in which to work through their suggestions so that you can improve your level and get up to a level 3. Once again, it's my understanding that you can't actually get a level 2. It's not going to benefit you. So the cost of trying to go from a level 1 to a level 3, it's very substantial. And so before even you have an assessor come out and look at your system, you really should make sure that you are as compliant as possible with the level 3 requirements. And one thing I haven't mentioned is that the CMMC guides have been released, and so we do have that. Or if you want to Google CMMC guides, you can find out what you need to do for a level 1 and what you need to do for a level 3. So that is my understanding of that process.
Right, and just to add to that, the CMMC board, which governs, they have the contract with DoD to do this. They recommend a pre-audit where somebody comes in, one of the auditors comes in, and they pre-audit your compliance levels, and then you can make whatever corrections you need to make, and then be ready for the real audit.
So the PTACs in that case would be like the pre-audit. That's how businesses should use their PTAC. They could come in there and show the PTAC their self-assessment checklist and get the PTAC's feedback on, did I check all the blocks?
Yes.
That kind of, do
Yeah.
you think I'm ready for my pre-audit?
We
You
could
use the PTAC.
except for the other compliance steps. Remember, there's 5 of them. So anything outside of the assessment, our university wouldn't allow us to go and review your security plan, but there may be other PTACs that have the ability to do it. So no.
No.
Okay.
No PTAC can do that. But what the PTAC's role would be is to say, it is a requirement of CMMC that you have a security plan.
Right.
Business, do you have a security plan? And then the business would say, no, I don't, or yes, I do. That would be the extent of the assistance.
Very good. Yeah.
But it is still valuable that you would tell them there's no sense in you paying for a pre-audit or paying for an audit. There's no sense in you doing that if you have not created a security plan.
That's right. And part of the documentation we'll send you is a sample security plan. So you can read that and kind of understand, at least through the sample, what they're talking about and how they're talking. And the wording is so important. So be careful about using certain kinds of words that that would leave questions for the auditor to review, to think about.
And also, if you don't mind me interjecting a little bit, there is a difference between the self-assessment and the CMMC. In order to become CMMC certified for level 1, there are other processes that they've added in addition to the 14 family controls. So for level 1, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but let's just say they add 15. For level 3, they might add 35 or more. Don't quote me on those numbers, but they are in the guide. So do understand that the self-assessment is literally step 1, and there's going to be other steps that you're going to have to take in order to become CMMC certified.
Right.
And this self-assessment checklist that Spelile showed today during the webinar, that is something that the University of Texas Arlington created. That is a checklist they created, but there are other checklists. There's a checklist posted at DoD CIO. There is one at CMMC. Maybe the email's even cmmc.org, I'm not sure. But the official government created checklists are posted online as well. But we're going to make this particular checklist available to them via email after the session, right, Gregory?
Yes.
Yes, so then to follow on that, there is a comment in the Q&A. Someone says they use the spreadsheet and they find a flaw in it. An answer of NA does not give credit for that selection. So how do you answer the last question in SPURS with regard to a date for full compliance with 110 controls when there are NA answers to any of the procedures? It's not possible to ever get 110 controls when some controls are NA.
I'll go ahead and address that. Once again, you're going to have to look at the scoring methodology. There are some questions where you can have a score of NA, but once again, the government, even though you feel like it doesn't apply to your company, the government feels like it should apply to your company, and that is why they want you to go ahead and implement that, even though you don't feel like it applies. So that would be something that they insist that you do. And don't forget that the questions are all weighted differently. So, you know, even though the score is 110, if you add up the total value of all of the scores, it's in excess of 200. So, you know, basically you're plus or, well, you're not plus or minus, but you have some, I guess, leeway to play around with the numbers a little bit. So even though you start off with a score of 110, which is, you know, the way they have it scored, you can analyze the scoring methodology to kind of understand things for yourself. But the way that they have it scored is, even though some of them are not applicable, you're still going to have to make it applicable to your company. So I hope that addresses your question, but that's really one of the best ways to answer that. We've talked to numerous people about the scoring methodology, and everybody has something different. It's not always as cut and dry as we would like the answers to be, but that's pretty close, so sorry.
That person commented back to you that there should not be an NA option then. It should only be yes or no.
You
Of
know,
course,
I would love that, but I don't make the rules.
Right. That's right. That's right. Next question. Will all DoD contractors need to meet these protocols, or will it depend on the levels of the type of contract the company is pursuing? For example, non-cyber or IT-focused contracts versus logistics planning or construction services.
Spelile, you have any?
Oh, sure, yeah,
Initial
and I'm sorry.
comments?
I was waiting for Gregory to jump in there.
No, it's okay. You go ahead. I'll be last.
So for the interim rule, which of course is now, if you sell exclusively, you know, commercial off-the-shelf items, or if you exclusively have micro
Purchases.
Yes.
Sorry, micro purchases, which are less than 10,000, then you're kind of exempt. Also, you have to understand that right now the government has the option of putting or the DoD has the option of putting the SPURS score on a contract. They haven't done that with all of them yet. And eventually they're going to get to the point where all of the contracts will have a SPURS score. So right now they're really concentrating on those contracts that deal with the CUI, because that's more important right now than, like, you know, maybe say a staffing company. Not to say you're not important, but, you know, in terms of just national security, that's what they're focusing on now. But eventually it's going to be every contract, and that's what they're saying. Every contract will have a SPURS score. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in.
Right.
Eventually it's going to apply to you. Now, when is eventually? 6 months, a year, 3 years? I don't know, but it will happen. And so it's just within your best interest to go ahead and do that. And it's like what Gregory was saying, you know, whatever the DoD implements, other federal agencies are going to implement. So it could be, you know, 10 years from now, you're just going to have a CMMC level. Now, the CMMC level versus the interim rule, when in 2025, when you are actually supposed to have a certification level, then they're stating that all contracts will have it. And there are rolling out contracts currently that do have a CMMC level. But this really applies to only level 4 and level 5 companies, because that's what they're focusing on right now.
So let me add this about construction and non-IT type stuff. There's no doubt that the Army Corps of Engineers, at least over here in the Fort Worth division, they're trying to figure out how they do this. We've been in discussions with the small business people there and how to do it. But to be safe, I would do it. Just think about it. We had a case where a contractor had gotten a contract to build a facility at Fort Hood down in Killeen, Texas. Well, the contracting officer made the mistake and sent him the plans for every building on the facility. Now that to me would be a violation of that CUI. So, and by the way, too, the contracting people will determine what is CUI and what isn't, as well as primes will do that. So it's going to really depend on how the contracting officer views what they're sending you, and is it does it meet the CUI test or not? But that's an internal agency guideline, and those things we aren't privy to it at this point. But to be safe, especially if you're building something on a military base, that we don't want our enemies to know what you're building. So although they can look, I'm sure they'll know, but there's no sense in giving it to them easily, make them have to work for it.
Thank you. The next question, how does ISO 9001 affect CMMC certification, if at all?
It does not. It's totally different. However, the ISO does have a risk assessment program where CMMC would fit in. So with our MEP that we work with here, they're using the ISO AS 9100, all the quality standards. They're going to the risk assessment part of that and adding the CMC compliance. But they're two separate things.
Thank you. The next question, do I need special software to pass self-assessment? And do I need to host my own server?
Well, you don't need special software. We just created the software. It's on a piece of paper you can download from the government. It's just a test, you know, and so you can do that. And passing really just depends on the score that you get versus the score that's on the contract you want to bid for. And then as far as technical information, it's going to be on there what the government expects from you. Basically, the rule of thumb is just give the government what they want. Don't do anything more, because you never know when something's going to change. So, so as you're going through the self-assessment, if you find that you need it, yes, you need it. If not, then I won't worry about it.
And I will say, from the government's perspective, most small businesses that are delivering products on most of the government's contracts are not going to need the extremely extensive, the CMMC 3 or above. The DoD believes that most businesses are only going to need CMMC level 1. So it's really important for you to go through the self-assessment, enter your score and spurs, and to read your solicitations to see what is this, when CMMC starts being passed down, what is the CMMC certification level for the kind of commodities that you're providing. Generally speaking, many of you that are providing, selling food, if you're not working on a secret project or a subcontractor on a secret project, it's quite likely that you're going to need one of the lower levels of CMMC. So try not to get too nervous about it at this point. The next question, if our company has already completed the self-assessment and noted our score and spurs, can the PTAC still be of use to our company going forward? Absolutely. Helping with CMMC is only one thing that PTACs do. PTACs will help you at no cost with any part of the government contracting process. They'll help you identify what NAICS you provide. That's the NAICS. They'll tell you who buys the products and services that you sell. They'll help you find procurement opportunities. They'll help you understand the terms of the solicitations, tell you how to submit your bids. They'll help you in the post-award phase by teaching you how to submit your invoices to wide area workflow. If you get letters from your contracting officer and you don't understand exactly what is the meaning of the letter or understand how you should respond, your PTAC will help you. They're absolutely the experts on all things related to government contracting at the city, state, and local levels. So CMMC is just one of the many things that they do. I encourage you all to reach out to them to see how they can help you. The next question is, does this apply to professional services providers?
If you're working with the Department of Defense, yes. Pretty much.
The next question, please identify who are the assessors. Are they a private company?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so right now they're still trying to, I think right now they have something like 75 assessors, not very many for the entire nation. And so they are always searching for companies that have the assessing capabilities. So companies that have already done audits or maybe even cybersecurity audits, that type of thing. You have to have some type of certification. But there is, if you're interested in becoming one of those companies, you can apply through the CMMC accreditation body. They are looking for assessors. But to just answer your question, these are cybersecurity auditing professionals that are being trained by the CMMC accreditation body to assess companies for CMMC.
The next question, at what point does the PTAC charge the facility? Do they charge for the assessment but assist free of charge for the assessment? PTACs don't certify any business as in a CMMC level. They don't do that at all. And they don't charge businesses for any of their services. I take that back. They can charge if they give you custom reports for your company that are over and above the typical, bid matching, or how do I find who sells what, buys what I sell. They are allowed to charge a nominal fee for that. But with regard to CMMC, they're not allowed to charge for anything. And all they do is teach you about the requirements. They teach you how to find information about the requirement, and they teach you some typical responses that can help you understand those requirements. They don't come to your facility and look at your cyber situation. They aren't consultants for you in the cybersecurity lane. They're educators that teach you how to understand the government's requirements. So you're not going to pay them for any of those services that they provide to you. Who will come to our facility to perform a CMMC assessment?
So that would be the CMMC assessors, pretty much. And once again, they're trained through the accreditation body.
For COTS suppliers, do you still need NIST?
Currently, you do not for the interim role. For the CMMC, they are believing that you will need to be level 1 certified.
Next question, is there a benefit for the business owner and his employees to apply for a security clearance?
That's only if it's required. And to get the security, facility security clearance, you have to be sponsored by a prime contractor. So it just doesn't happen overnight. It's quite a process, but if it's required, then yeah, you'll need to get it.
Will CMMC be applicable to non-DoD agencies?
We anticipate it will. Right now, they're all, we feel that all government agencies, or at least at the federal level, will require some sort of compliance to the DFAR. Yes.
So if you do not and will not handle controlled unclassified information, then you do not need to perform a self-assessment with regard to the DoD interim rule?
No, you're still going to have to do it. They're even on non-CUI contracts, they will have a SPUR score. They might not have it currently, but they're going to start rolling that out soon.
The next question, who do I contact to get a copy of the Excel assessment? And that will be provided with the other documents, the charts that we're using. Those will be provided at the same place after the session. Or if you are in Arlington, Texas, you can contact our local PTAC, Mr. James and Ms. Davis. My company is a woman-owned small business and will resell highly technical items. Will we need to flow down the CMMC process to our subcontractors?
That's a great question. Yes, you will.
I'm supporting a small machine shop involved with prototype machining and tooling for concept validation, proof of design. What level would be required? Level 3, question mark?
I would think level 3, yes. Basically, the rule of thumb is, the question you want to ask yourself is, if this information were to get into my enemy's hands, or if this information were to get into my competitor's hands, would I have a problem with that? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably dealing with CUI. So it sounds to me like, yes, you would probably want to be level 3.
And then the final question that we have is COTS sales is an exemption under CMMC, so no certification is required.
So it's not.
I think that they're confusing the requirement to have a SPURS number posted and the requirement to be CMMC certified. Is that what you're thinking too, Spelile?
Yes, because right now COTS is excluded, but it will be included when the CMMC level when the actual CMMC. So it is two different things. And if you're a little bit confused about that, once again, your PTACs are a great resource to, just call them up and say, hey, I do this. Do I need to satisfy the interim role, or, is it okay for right now?
Right. And someone, RV, I'm going to pass it right back over to you. The final comment is, and it is true, and I wanted to hammer this home, the agency determines the CMMC level requirement. It has to be published in your solicitation. So even if you do the solicitation for the same exact thing 2 times in a row, you need to check to see what the CMMC requirement is in each of those solicitations. So thank you very much, Gregory and Spelile, and thank you, Arvis, for inviting us, and I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Gregory and Spelile, and most importantly, Sherry. Sherry and I are going to do a series of these with local PTACs over this calendar year. Excuse me. And I just want to let everyone know that these slides and that spreadsheet, you will be able to secure that from our website, which is https://www.secnab.navy.mil / small business. So please visit our website, give us a few days to get that posted, and you'll have that information available. You can also view the recording of this video. A link will be posted on our website under past events, or you can visit our YouTube channel as well for any previously recorded videos. So I'd like to take the time to say thank you for joining us today, and thank you for our speakers. If you have any recommendations for a topic that you would like to see presented, please forward us an email at OSBP, that's for Office of Small Business Programs, .PAO, Public Affairs Office at Navy.mil. And until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. We will be getting our February schedule together soon, so please stay connected with us and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,